Welcome to this lesson on how to cite your sources like a historian in Chicago style. So, we're going to start out with how to do a footnote. We want to understand how to create and write our footnotes in Chicago style. So, first you're going to need the sentence in which you are using information from the source you want to cite. I'm going to use an example from the Caribbean, A Brief History. So here goes. For example, in Taino societies, a gendered division of labor provided for men to hunt and fish while women performed daily agricultural tasks. So we're going to add a footnote to the end of this sentence because this sentence uses information from the source that I want to cite. So we have the sentence and we're going to add a footnote at the end. Now, after you insert your footnote, the footer is going to appear at the bottom of your document with the corresponding footnote number. And you're going to have your number, and then your footnote will go here after that corresponding number. Now, we need to understand what we put in our footnote and how we write it. So we have our footnote after our sentence, and at the bottom of that page, we're going to look for the information that we need to include to make sure that everyone knows where we got this information. So, the information in this sentence in the first bullet point came from a book called The Caribbean, A Brief History, written by Gad Human. Now, this information was found on page 7 of the book. This book was published by Bloomsbury Academic in London, and this edition is copyrighted as of 2019. So now, we have the author's first and last name, the title of the book, the city in which it was published, the publisher's name, the year it was published, and the page number from which we retrieve the information that we need to cite. So our basic formatting is first name, last name, comma, the title of the book, in parentheses, the city, colon, publisher's name, the year it was published or copyrighted, and ending parentheses, a comma, and then the page number from which we retrieve the information that we are citing in this sentence. We're going to notice here that the author's name is listed first to last, and that all the information in this footnote is separated by a comma and not periods. There's only a period at the end of the citation. So, if we use our color-coded system here, we're going to draw this information into a real footnote. So we have the first name and last name of this author, which is Gad Human, in red. Then in blue, we have the title, which is italicized because it is a book, The Caribbean, A Brief History. Now in parentheses, we have the city in which the book was published, which is London. We have a colon, and then the publisher's name we have here in green, which is Bloomsbury Academic, comma, the year it was published or copyrighted, end parentheses, another comma, and then the page number from which we got the information that is mentioned in the sentence that we need to cite. So what if we use the same source again in the same paper? You can use the shortened version of that footnote now, which looks like this: the author's last name only, the title of the work, and the page number from which you retrieved the information. Now, if you use the same source directly after the source used in the sentence previous, you can use ibid. Now, in that footnote, instead of writing the same citation again or even using the short version, you can use ibid. Now, in order to use ibid, the information has to come from the same source and the same exact page, and it must be the very next citation that you're doing after that previous sentence in which you use the same information from the same page. They have to be consecutive. Otherwise, you're putting ibid beneath a citation that ibid is not corresponding to. Ibid is like, look right above. That's what this is. It's like saying, yeah, same thing as what's above. So if it's not the citation that's going to be above it in the footnotes at the bottom of the page, you cannot use ibid, and it has to be from the same exact page from the source. Now, what if we're citing a journal article? It's not too much different. If you're citing an article from an academic journal, you are going to use the same format in your footnotes, but just adjust some of the information that you're going to include in that footnote. So what you're going to need to have is the author's first and last name, the title of the article, the title of the journal that published the article, as well as the volume and number of the journal, and then the month and year it was published, and the page number from which we retrieve the information that we need to cite. So it's going to look something like this. The first and last name of the author, the title of the article, the name of the journal and its number, then in parentheses the month and year, end parentheses, colon, and then the page number or numbers that you used for the information that you were citing. Now, what if we're citing a website? It's even easier. So if you're citing information from a website, you're going to use the same format in your footnotes, but simply adjust some of the information that you include. So you need to have the author's first and last name, if there is one, the title of the article or page of the website, the name of the website, the date last modified or the date that you accessed the website's information, and then at the end we need the URL from which you retrieved the information that we're citing. So it's going to look like this. If it has an author, we have the first and last name in order, a comma, in quotations, the article or page title of the page from which we retrieve that information on the website, comma, end quote, the name of the website, comma, the date that it was last modified. Some websites include this, some do not. Or if you don't have a date that it was last modified that's provided by the website itself, you would just list the date that you accessed that website and got that information, comma, and then the URL you use to access that exact page with the information on it. Now, when we get to the end of our paper, we're going to need to create a bibliography or works cited page, which includes all of our sources from the entire paper combined. Now, when we're writing our bibliography and works cited page, we're going to take our footnotes, but we're going to flip some things around and get rid of some stuff. So let's take the information from our footnote. Let's use our first example from the Caribbean, A Brief History. Our footnote looks like this. We have the author's first name, last name, comma, the title of the book, and then parentheses, the city that published the book, the publisher, comma, the year, end parentheses, comma, and the page number. We don't have to include all of these things in the bibliography. So in the bibliography, we're going to include the author's last name, comma, their first name. We're going to use periods to separate the information in the citation instead of commas. We're going to take away that parentheses around the publishing information. We're going to take away the page number, and we're going to use a hanging indentation in the bibliography. So for books, what does this look like? So we're going to go last name, comma, first name, period. The title of the book, period, the city, colon, publisher, comma, and then the year it was published. So for our source, it looks like this. We have the author's last name, comma, their first name, period. Then the Caribbean, A Brief History, as it is the title of the book, and it is italicized because it is a book title. Then we have a period to separate it from the publishing information. It was published in London, colon, by Bloomsbury Academic, that's the publisher's name, comma, the year it was published. Now, notice we have a hanging indent here. In order to create a hanging indent in your bibliography, you can simply select all of the sources you have listed in your bibliography, highlight them, right-click, and then select paragraph from your computer's options, then go to indent/spacing, and then select hanging indent, and typically it's by about 1/2 inch. Now, what if we want to do a scholarly article in our bibliography? Of course, we have to list all of the sources we use, no matter what type they were, in our bibliography. So, if we're citing a scholarly journal or an article in our bibliography, we're going to use this format, which is not too much different from a book. Again, we're rearranging the first and last names. Now we're going last name, comma, first name, period. The title of the article, in quotations, period. We're citing the journal name, comma, its number, period. And the month and year of its publication, around in parentheses, colon, and then the entire range of pages you used from the article. So let's say that you used pages 18, 36, and 72. So you're going to cite from the first page that you used all the way to the end. So if the first page I used was number 18 and the last page I used was number 72, I'm going to put 18-72, period. And then if you access this article online, you can go ahead and provide the URL if you use a URL to get to this article. Now, again, we're using a hanging indent, and like I said, you can simply select all of your sources in your bibliography page and do this, and it will do it all at the same time for you. So you're going to highlight the text, right-click, select paragraph, go to indent or spacing, and then select hanging indent, and it's typically by 1/2 inch. Now, why is citing things important? So you always want to be sure to give credit to people who gave you information that you use in your project or your paper. You don't ever want to plagiarize somebody else's information, as we can see serious academic repercussions for that. So we always want to cite our sources, not just to cover our own selves, but to also give credit to those who have helped us out on our research and for writing our paper.